the Keeping It Real TV program. I'm Krysta Gibson, your host. This program is devoted to practical spirituality, ways that we can ground whatever our spiritual practices might be into our everyday reality. And if you've watched my shows in the past, you'll see how whoever we interview or whatever topic we might talk about, that's the ultimate goal, is how can we use this in our daily lives. Now, I'm also the publisher of NewSpiritJournal.com, an online publication that is also devoted to practical spirituality. And we have articles on all kinds of topics, book reviews, all sorts of things that I highly recommend you give it a shot and see what you think. Now, today's guests have been on my show before, and it's Jyotish and Devi, who are the spiritual directors of the organization called Ananda. Now, I'm going to give you a little bit of background. Ananda was started by a man named J. Donald Walters, or Swami Kriyananda, and he was a direct disciple of Paramahansa Yogananda, who was an Indian saint or guru who came from India to the United States in the 1920s. And he spent 30 years traveling the United States until he passed away in 1952. And he was incredibly popular when he was here, and he even spoke at Carnegie Hall. And there's all kinds of photo documentation of all the people. We don't think of it in the 30s and 40s of people wanting to study with a guru from India, but oh yes, they did. And Swami Kriyananda was actually a disciple of Yogananda and actually lived and worked with him for the last 3 years of Yogananda's life. Well, in the late 1960s, Kriyananda started his own World Brotherhood community or colony, which was something that Yogananda was very passionate about, the forming of spiritual communities. Now, Kriyananda passed away in 2013, and he has left as his successors Jyotish and Devi, who have been involved with Ananda for, I think something like 40 years. So they know whereof they speak. And right now, Ananda has 8 communities in the world. They're in the United States. They have a community in Italy and over in India. So Jyotish and Devi spend a lot of their time traveling among the various communities, and they also write. And one of the things we're going to talk to them about today is their new book that is coming out February 20th, 2018, in case you're watching this after that date. And the name of the book is Touch of Joy, A Yogi's Guide to Lasting Happiness. And it's a collection of essays that they've written that relate to all different topics. Some of the essays are on divine love, the idea of happiness, saying yes to life. And the book is really full of wisdom and compassion, and it's a real joy to read. And it's one of those books you can just pick up and open it anywhere and receive a message for the day. So we're going to talk to Jyotish and Devi, and let's find out a little more about the book and why they wrote it. And there's one of the chapters in there I kind of want to talk to them about because I found it very impactful. So come along with me, and let's visit with Jyotish and Devi. Hello, Jyotish and Devi. It's such a delight to see you again.
Oh, hello, Krysta. It's wonderful to see you.
Yeah. It's been a while. So I wanted to ask you, you've been the spiritual directors of Ananda now since May 2013, right in there. What has that been like? What is that journey like to be spiritual directors of a worldwide organization like Ananda?
Well, that's a question that has a lot of levels to it, but I'll try to simplify. You know, Ananda has, during that time, become even more than it was a worldwide organization. And so one of the changes for Devi and me is that we travel a great deal. Almost half the time now we're on the road. We spend 3 weeks or a month in Europe, mainly in Italy, and then 3 months a year in India or so. And then while we're in the U.S., we visit each of our Ananda communities in the U.S. So we're on the road a lot. But we're also, to a certain extent, more focused on trying to write and try to communicate with a large group of people.
Right.
Just add here, too, You know, Krysta, you said we became the spiritual directors in 2013. Well, technically that's true. But really, Swami Kriyananda, Ananda's founder and our lifelong teacher, had been training us, guiding us, working with us in that role for decades. So it's like this was just getting pushed in to the deep end of a pool we've never swum in before.
Right.
So it was something that he had guided us along. And it was like he was teaching us to ride the bike, and he was holding the handlebars. Then he gradually let go and let go. And then finally he just left this world, went to a higher one, I'm quite sure. But we still feel his guidance tremendously.
Right. Yeah, and that's so wise when a leader does that instead of not preparing their successors, whether it's in business or a spiritual organization or wherever. To have the wisdom to have done that ahead of time was so wise. But he was a very wise man.
Very wise, especially in spiritual organizations. It's actually more the rule not to have a successor really prepared,
right,
than to work the way Swami Kriyananda did. So he was a really great leader as well as a great spiritual teacher.
So I want to talk a bit about, because you do write quite a lot, and I'm on your email list, which I'll give information for later for people who want to get on your list. But this new book that you came out with, Touch of Joy, A Yogi's Guide to Lasting Happiness. Can you tell us like how it was written, why you wrote it, where it's coming from for you?
Okay, well, I'll start. You know, Krysta, you said you're on our mailing list. Jyotish and I write a weekly blog called Touch of Light. And we've been doing this now since 2013. That seems to be a turning point in our life. And we alternate weeks. And we try to give our subscribers, our readers, just a very powerful but practical spiritual idea, thought, story that they can really use in their own life. And people receive it very well. We have we're I think up to over 30,000 subscribers, and from all over the world. So and we get wonderful letters and feedback. But I think what people like about it the most is that each essay blog is short and has a practical thing they can do. And so Touch of Joy is a compilation of the weekly blogs from 2015 and 2016. And we see it as a series. Our first compilation was Touch of Light. This is Touch of Joy. These are all qualities of God. I think that this one will be Touch of Love. We haven't decided exactly yet. But I think in today's world, people are so desperate to find happiness. How do we get there? I'm just writing a blog right now called The Happiness Thieves, because there's so much in our society that just steals our happiness. So this is kind of the background of the book.
And how did you come up with the title Joy, as opposed to, I mean, you mentioned love, and I know the first book I have called Touch of Light, but why did you focus on joy?
Well, I think that, Master, being Paramahansa Yogananda, said that his primary qualities were wisdom, love, and joy. And Ananda itself means joy. And so joy has been a theme that runs through everything that we do and all of the things that we say. And ultimately, for a yogi, the ultimate goal is to achieve a state of bliss. And so that drive of the soul toward a state of joy, a state of bliss, is a natural, primordial part of our being. And therefore, it seemed a good title and a natural title for a book.
And I think, too, as I briefly mentioned, you read the news, and I'm not talking about world affairs, I'm talking about social conditions where the level of depression, anxiety, stress, it's all on the rise. And illnesses related to those conditions. And we just read an article that Yale University offered a course, which was the most popular course ever offered there. A quarter of the student body enrolled, and the topic was happiness.
Mm-hmm. Right.
I'm looking for it, and because things are so accelerated.
Right.
Or, maybe it'll be in fame and fortune and position, and they're not finding it in any of those things, in superficial human relations. And so we're trying to show people where they can find it, and that's within yourself.
Well, I've read some of the chapters in the book, and there's one of them, well, there's several that are my favorites, but one of them you wrote, I'm going to take you back in time to March 5th, 2015. Davy, you wrote it. And it's called Being God's Advisor. And what you started off by saying, you had read a wonderful statement by C.S. Lewis. Many people want to serve God, mostly in an advisory capacity. And I love that because, what you go on to say is that most of the time, we want to tell God how things should be. We want to advise God. And you talk about the fire at Ananda and kind of how that shifted things for you. So can you talk about that? How can we move from being God's advisor to what you say in the article about becoming God's child?
Yes, it's really an important subject. That it comes back to a tendency within people to not look at themselves as the root cause of what's happening, but look at things around them. And therefore you want to change the circumstance. You want to change your spouse, the way they behave. You want to change your boss. You want to change the world. You want to change politics. You want to change everything else. The natural extension of that is that you want to change the way God runs things. Because you don't want to look at, maybe I need to change myself. Maybe I need to adapt. Everything else needs to adapt. And if you're going to traverse the happiness real way, you end up having to look at your own patterns, your own behaviors, because ultimately happiness lies inside you, and it's about your reactions to things, not the things themselves.
And also the techniques and tools of meditation and yoga really help us to make that transition, because it can be a very nice thought, but how in the world do you make that change? But what meditation is really, it's the highest form of modern day psychology, because it helps us to really look within objectively, not to be unafraid to make changes, and then to just be open to other possibilities. And all this happens in meditation when we expand our sense of personal identity. I have a friend who recently told me she was having an argument with her spouse, and he had one point of view, she had one point of view, and they were kind of at an impasse. And then finally, and they're both yogis, finally she said, I just broke out laughing, and I thought, why do I have to be right? Let his way be right. And she said, let's do it your way. And she said his way was perfectly fine.
Right.
We get so committed to what we think is right. And again, Jyotish was saying we want to change everyone. But if we can just open our perspective a little bit and say, well, other people could have a perfectly valid point of view and be accepting. And then once that door opens, you can just keep moving along that corridor that leads to real happiness.
It also takes about 2/3 of the stress out of life.
Right.
But I want you can relax a little bit.
I want to ask how can we apply this? How can people watching this apply this to the current world situation, which for many people looks so dire and hopeless and dark and oh my God, everything is so terrible. How can we move to that place of whether you want to call it non-attachment or trust or faith? How do we get there? I mean, meditation, yes, but kind of what thoughts can people work with to get there?
Well, I think this is, and we've said this before, times we live in are very filled with fraught with peril, but it's also an opportunity, because to survive, we need to exert control over our reactive process, over our thoughts, over our emotional responses to things. And so, really, if you're just plagued with worries and fears, you need to stop and look at that and really try to find an antidote. When your mind starts, oh, what if this happens? What if nuclear war happens? All these things. You just say, I can't control that, but I can control the state of mind. I control the weather inside my own mind. Mm-hmm. And try to, with a conscious effort, counter worries with peace, with calmness. Say, today the world is holding together. I can't change the overall picture, but try to live in a state of peace. So counter worries with conscious calmness and peace. Counter negative thought patterns and negative speech with positive ones. So if you read a negative article on the news, try to find something that counters that, counterbalances that, some positive article. If you have a habit pattern of speaking negatively about other people, counter that by speaking positively. Now, a friend of ours said she used to be critical of people, and she would start on a conversation and she would say, oh, that person, they're always late for everything they do, or whatever the topic might be. And then she did a little trick where she would end that with saying, just like me. And it changed it. So essentially the point we're making with these different examples is we need to take control of our thought patterns, our behavior patterns, and our active process and say, I can't just be a ping pong ball in the middle of the storms that are all around us. I need to make a choice. And the choice is to be positive, to live in peace and calmness, and to affirm happiness in my own life.
Also, I would add that, we need to discriminate between that which we can change and be effective in and that which we really can't. If a hurricane is coming, you can't change the hurricane, but you can open up your own windows in your own house. Right. So we need to discriminate, especially with world affairs the way they are, between that which we can affect positively, which is generally only our own self, and that which we can't. Secondly, I think it would be very helpful if people could be more aware that the news is designed, especially the headlines, are designed in order to create anxiety and fear. And so if you read 80% of the headlines will have some negative connotation and negative fear-inducing factor. So I'm not saying to disconnect entirely from knowing what's going on, but I would say 5 minutes of news a day, realizing that you're opening yourself to somebody else trying to get you anxious.
Right.
5 minutes a day of that is plenty. That'll give you enough knowledge of what's going on.
Right.
And if something's really important, it will insist on getting your attention.
It'll filter to us. And I think in light of what you're saying, and so I want to talk about your book for a minute here, when you were talking about what we focus on and the thoughts we allow ourselves to have, having a book like yours that's just coming out, having that's close by while you're working or whatever you're doing, and you catch yourself sliding into that place of negativity or fear, pick the book up and just open. That's one of the delightful things about this book. It's one of those you can pick up anywhere, and there's going to be a message there for you because they're nice and tight and compact. So there's a special going on, and if people are watching this after February 20th, 2018, listen in anyway. But between now and midnight on February 20th, you have a special if people buy your book. Do you want to tell our viewers about that?
Sure. So if you pre-order now from Amazon, and the link is touchofjoybook.com,
Right.
or you can simply go to ananda.org.
Right.
That's Ananda's main homepage. There's a whole big picture of the book and a link you can click on. If you pre-order before February 20th midnight, then we'll send you also 6 ebooks as a gift. Pre-ordering Touch of Joy. And these are books published by our publisher, Crystal Clarity, books by Swami Kriyananda, by Yogananda, some by Jyotish on how to meditate. So it's a very nice, it's our way of saying thank you for pre-ordering this book. Right. So either go directly to Amazon, touchofjoybook.com, or I think it's simpler to just go to ananda.org, and that will lead you to the Amazon pre-order as well as signing up for your free ebook. So we hope to do that, and it's fun. The book actually, won't be released till February 20th, but it's actually rising quite high on the Amazon book sales list, so it's very encouraging. And we really appreciate you helping us to get the word out.
Oh, absolutely. And we'll have all the information with this video so people can also access it that way as well. Yeah.
People told us that they keep the book by their bedside.
Yep.
Just read one of them before they go to sleep.
Right.
And it's better after that.
Yeah, in fact, it's a very helpful tip to go to sleep with positive images in mind and to wake up and try to have something positive be the first thoughts that you have.
Yeah, it's wonderful.
Exactly. You got to get yourself tuned in and right where you want to go. And then I want to mention one thing. It doesn't relate to your book, but just especially for people in the Seattle area, is you're going to be here in July for the East Meets West Fest. Try saying that fast. But I just wanted to put that out there. So for people in the greater Seattle area who might be here in July, they can go to anandawa.org, and I'll have that on the screen, and they can find out more about that as well, because then they have an opportunity to see you in person.
And we'll get a chance to see you in person.
That's right. Get to see you again. Yeah, we haven't seen each other in person for a while. That'll be fun. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show today and for sharing your wisdom and your delightfulness and your joyfulness with our viewers. I greatly appreciate it, and I encourage everybody to pre-order the book, get the free ebooks, and enjoy it. Make the teachings a part of your life. Thank you.
Thank you. It's wonderful to see you.
Awesome. What a delight to get to speak with Jyotish and Devi, and I hope that you enjoyed it. I know the sound went a little wonky a couple of times. Just one of the things, I love technology, and without it, we wouldn't have been able to do this interview today, but every now and then it can be a little bit challenging. So I apologize if any of it was wonkiness. We'll just put that in Skype's lap. Anyway, I've put up on the screen, you can see how to order the book, how to pre-order it before February 20th midnight. And then also do check out, they're going to be here in town in July in Seattle. So anybody who's in this general area, that's the local Ananda, Washington website, which is anandawa.org. And I just really want to reiterate what Jyotish and Devi were saying today, because there is so much going on in the world, and I, along with anybody else, if I let myself go down that road of, getting too deeply involved in the headlines and too deeply involved in the uproar that can be going on, I lose my sense of peace. Now, I am very big on, I think it is important for those of us on a spiritual path to know what's going on. And I believe that we need to be involved at whatever level. If it's the level of voting, if you feeling, I would love to see more spiritually oriented people run for office, especially young folks who have some new ideas. But whatever your level of involvement can be, although you don't want to let the political mess and what's going on with everything bog you down, you also need to keep it real by having whatever level of involvement you feel drawn to do. And it might be as simple as praying. It might be sending light to the people involved, writing letters, whatever it might be. Only you know what's right for you. But I do encourage you, pray, meditate, stay peaceful, read good books, fill your mind with positivity and positive thoughts, and know that ultimately everything will be okay, because it will. Thank you so much for being here and for watching this show, Keeping It Real. I love hearing from you, so please feel free to send me an email. And I'll see you the next time. And in the meantime, remember, whatever you're involved in, take your spirituality with you and keep it real. Next time.